makes me doubt it when you just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always the same. And I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
I think I'm prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
On a Wednesday, February 18, Friday, David Jackson, by the way, from USA Today, covers the White House for USA Today, joins us in our next segment. So Friday is the 20th of February. A week from Friday, February 27, the funding runs out for the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, now, whatever you say about government agencies, the Department of Homeland Security is pretty important. I think they're all important, but you could argue, yeah, we could do without an EPA, or we could do without a Department of Education, or I don't know, we could do without a Department of the Internal Revenue Service, for example. It's hard to argue we could do without the Department of Homeland Security. Now, we haven't had it for that long, true, but the agencies and the departments that make it up have been around for a long time. They include the Coast Guard, they include FEMA, they include the Secret Service, they include the Border Patrol. This is what it runs out. The funding for this runs out on February 27, and John Boehner is saying, shut it down. Shut it down. Yeah. At a very time, and again, listen to the name again, if you will, please. Department of Homeland Security, right? Right? These are the people that have the job of protecting us, leading the fight against terrorism coming here to our shores again. And mercifully, it hasn't happened since September 11th. But really, after what we saw with ISIS in Iraq, ISIS in Syria, now ISIS in Libya, and after what we saw in Paris, and that we saw over the weekend in Copenhagen, and there's a story this morning that Italy now fears that it is the next battleground or target for ISIS to get a foothold in Italy, because it's right across the Mediterranean, of course, from Libya. This is a time to shut down the Department of Homeland Security. Really? But that's what John Boehner is saying. So with all the talk about immigration, and this judge, this loony judge in Texas, putting a hold temporarily on President Obama's executive order on immigration, that's a sideshow, folks. What's really going on is this battle now in Washington between John Boehner, Republican head of the House, and Mitch McConnell, Republican head of the Senate. And remember, let's go back. Republicans said last year, you put us in charge, baby. We're going to show we can govern. We're going to show we can get things done.
No more of this political crap. No more of these political games. And remember, even Mitch McConnell was saying, "Oh, we're not going to have another shutdown."
He said, "No shutdown.
No shutdown.
We're going to show we know how to govern. We're not going to shut anything down." That's what they said. Okay. Now they had this little leftover business. At the end of 2014, they couldn't agree on a budget, and they came close to shutting down the government. But then they said, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll pass the entire budget. We just won't pass the budget for the Department of Homeland Security. We'll deal with that one agency when we come back after the holidays. So now we're back. And now, again, February 27 runs out of money. And again, Mitch McConnell, as Peter just pointed out, whose pledge is, we're going to show how responsible we are. We are grown-ups. We will not shut down the government. How about John Boehner? Here's John Boehner on Fox. This is, again, Republican versus Republican. Here's John Boehner with Chris Wallace on Fox News this Sunday.
The House has acted. We've done our job. Senate Democrats are the ones putting us in this precarious position. And it's up to Senate Democrats to get their act together.
Yeah, what he's talking about, of course, is the House has passed 3 times a bill that says there will be no funding. Well, there's funding for the Department of Homeland Security, but only if the president rescinds or repeals his executive order of a couple of years ago, the so-called Dreamers Act, or the DACA, D-A-C-A. That bill has failed 3 times in the U.S. Senate. There are not enough votes in the U.S. Senate. there are no Democratic votes. There are not enough Republican votes in the U.S. Senate. John McCain has said, this is nuts. This House bill is wrong. Mitch McConnell has said he cannot support this House bill. Bob Corker from Tennessee has said he cannot support this House bill. Chris Wallace tries to point this out to John Boehner. It's not their fault, dude. It's yours.
Ask it Chris. One more time. The House has done its job under the Constitution. It's time for the Senate to do their job. Listen, I've got a tough year. So does Senator McConnell. But Senate Democrats are the ones standing in the way. They're the ones jeopardizing funding. Why don't they get on the bill and offer an amendment, offer their ideas? Let's see what the Senate can do.
And Chris Wallace says, incredulously, are you saying you would shut down the entire Department of Homeland Security over some unrelated issue, really unrelated issue, an executive order signed 2 years ago by the president?
What if the Department of Homeland Security funding runs out?
Well, then Senate Democrats should be to blame, very simply.
And you're prepared to let that happen?
Certainly. The House is active. We've done our job.
Wow.
What is wrong with him? Certainly. He doesn't understand how this is going to play out.
Suicidal.
Totally.
And again, Mitch McConnell sees that. John McCain sees that. Bob Corker sees that. There are some grown-ups in the Senate, Republicans, who see that. And Boehner, because, I'm so disappointed. I really thought, and you heard me express it here, and I'm willing to say I was wrong, at least so far. I really thought that when Republicans took over both houses, that McConnell and Boehner would recognize they got 2 years before 2016. This is the time to get some things done. We got to work together, to find a way to work with Obama, and we got to move forward. No. John Boehner has not changed one bit. He is still owned lock, stock, and barrel by the Tea Party caucus, who still, again, are so outraged over this executive action that President Obama signed. And what gets lost maybe in this discussion is, and it's worth going back and looking at it, what Obama did was the right thing to do. What his executive action said that kids who were brought here by their parents when they were too young to even know it, right? And who have lived here all their lives and speak English and have jobs, and many of whom have served in the military, they should have a right to get on the path of citizenship. They should not be summarily deported. That's all. They're not given citizenship automatically. It's just that they're protected from being deported just simply because their parents brought them here 15, 16, 20 years ago. And it also says that those people who have lived here already 5 or 10 years, maybe, have jobs, paying taxes, have families, again, should not be, and have no criminal background, should not be summarily deported. It's the right thing to do. It's the moral thing to do. President Obama did the right thing, and he has the constitutional authority to do it. End of story.
End of story. That's it.
But John Boehner, who's been whining about it for the last 2 years, now is willing to shut down the entire Department of Homeland Security. And you know what I say? Shut it down, baby. Shut it down and pay the price. This could be the end of the Republican Party, and Mitch McConnell knows that. David Jackson will fill us in on his take from the White House when we come back. Watch this issue, and we will certainly be watching it with you. I got to tell you, there's no more, for me, sex, good food. No, here's what I love best of all, watching Republicans fight Republicans. David Jackson from the White House coming up next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
13 minutes now before the top of the hour. A very important event underway at the White House yesterday and today. A summit on how to counter violent extremism. It keeps things hopping down at the White House, where we find early this morning David Jackson covering the White House for USA Today. Hey, David, how's it going?
Oh, pretty good, Bill. How about yourself?
Good. I'm excited. I'm heading to South Carolina next week for a little talk at Furman University.
Ah, great school, and you'll have a good time there. It's going to be a very important state this time next year.
Oh, yeah. Right.
In fact, if you heard that Tim Scott and Trey Gowdy are organizing a series of forums for the candidates later this year. Nothing's on the schedule yet. But
oh, no, really? I didn't know that. Yeah.
They're talking about, they're trying to organize a series of get-togethers, and I'm sure those will be well attended.
So is Furman a good party school? I mean,
well, it used to be. It's a religious school, so they've had. Over the years, it's the influence of the religion on the school has waxed and waned, shall we say?
Oh, good.
Back in my day, it was quite the party school. I'm not sure what it is today. So
it'll be a party when when Bill's there.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. It'll be it'll be interesting. There'll be a lot of ideological diversity. Let's put it that way, Bill. Furman University.
Well, there will be when I arrive for sure. Yeah, right. If there's not before I get there will be. Tell us about this summit. What's the purpose? Who's in attendance?
Law enforcement personnel from across the country, social workers, government officials, and religious organizations are all attending the summit. That it's basically designed. It's designed to create a strategy to prevent these foreign fighters from coming to the United States and attacking Americans. That's what it boils down to. Not too many officials want to put it in those stark terms, but that's their goal and that's their concern. Is that the kind of attacks that we've seen recently in Paris and Copenhagen, there's worry that those kind of things might start happening here, and the White House is trying to develop a strategy to head it off, and it includes not only law enforcement, but going into some communities and trying to dissuade young people from following these extremist groups.
I was going to ask you about that. It's the other side of it is to stop them from going there in the first place.
Right. Exactly. They're trying to get at the ground level. That's where a lot of religious leaders come in. A lot of community activists are attending this. And we've also got delegates, I think, from up to 60 countries that are also in town. President Obama will be speaking to them at the State Department tomorrow. Today's focus is more on the domestic aspects of this challenge.
Oh, I see. And is it all taking place then at the White House? Or?
This one's is taking place at the Executive Office Building in the White House complex. Right. And I think tomorrow the president's speaking at the State Department. There are meetings all over town on the topic.
I see. So it is a global event. I mean, there's a global focus here.
Oh, definitely, especially now given the events of Paris and Copenhagen.
Sure.
And, of course, it's also the political context is taking place at a time where we're having this flap over whether the administration should use the term Islamic extremism, which they don't like to use. And I'm sure that there'll be a lot of – one thing I'm looking for from the president's speech today is whether he addresses that issue or not.
Well, what I mean, as long as we eradicate the problem, right, or deal with the problem, it almost doesn't matter what you call it. But I've never understood the reluctance to say Islamic extremism or Islamist extremism and why they insist on saying violent extremism. Who are they offending? They think they're offending the Muslim world by using...
I think there's some concern that if they use it repeatedly, that it would be seen as an affront to the Islamic community. Of course, 99.999% of whom are law-abiding citizens. But I think there's a lot of sensitivity on that topic. I do think it's interesting that they're almost obsessive about not using it. It's almost like a religion. I am a little surprised at that, especially when you consider President Obama has an op-ed in the Los Angeles Times today, and so much of it is about how people are abusing religion, and he talks about the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda and all these groups. It's obvious what we're talking about, but he doesn't want to use that specific term, Islamic extremism. And I can't help but think at this point he doesn't want to use it because Fox wants him to use it.
Well, maybe that's it too. But, I have to go back and check my notes. But I'm pretty sure when he was here that right after the beheading of the burning, assassination of that Jordanian pilot, that King Hussein used the phrase Islamic extremism.
He did.
Yeah. So it's not always seen as a anti-Muslim.
No, I don't see anything good think of it that way. But you're right. It's almost become a fetish within the administration. I'm not sure I understand it myself. Maybe President Obama will use the term today. I don't know. I mean, you saw Eric Holder address the situation yesterday in his National Press Club.
They get tied up sometimes on words. It's like that income inequality. Instead, they came up with middle-class economics, right?
That's right. Well, there's language is power. I guess that's the Frank Luntz lesson, right? Is you can control the language, you can control the discussion.
Now, meanwhile, he's had a little distraction on immigration, from this judge in Texas.
Yes, it is a distraction. It just creates a lot of confusion. I don't think they're particularly worried about this decision because it's not going to stick.
Yeah.
I think the real fallout from yesterday is this case is going all the way to the Supreme Court. It's just a question of when it gets there and what form it gets there in. So I think they're just it's just like health care and climate change. They're just going to go along the bumpy legal trail and see where it leads.
You mentioned health care. Yesterday was the deadline, or today is? How'd that turn out?
I think over 11 million. They're pleased with the numbers, but they're extending the deadline in some cases. So I think they're pleased with the numbers, but I think everyone at this point is just focused on the Supreme Court case because there's a lot of concern about how if they have an adverse ruling in the Supreme Court for these subsidies, that's going to really screw up their planning for this thing. So I think they're fine with the numbers, but everyone's looking ahead to the court arguments later this year.
It's interesting. It's the dog doesn't bark, I guess, news, right? But
exactly
nothing about the webs, all the problems with the website and
people are signing up. The numbers are good. I think you hear the occasional Republican complaints about people's premiums rising, and there's still a few cancel policies, and I'm sure it'll be a big issue on the Republican presidential side, but I think it's become just a basic political issue now. Republicans don't like it, Democrats do like it, and independents will decide how important it is.
It's almost like, damn, they got it fixed.
This is still a potent issue among conservatives. I mean, we'll hear a lot about it in the primaries. How much we'll hear about in the general, I don't know, but it could all here again. We're like back where we were 3 years ago. It could all change just depending on what the Supreme Court does.
Absolutely. Somehow they're going to squeeze in a briefing today at 12:30, David. So we'll be looking for you then.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Get better.
Thanks, man. All right. David Jackson at the White House. How did he know I was sick?
You can't tell.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just a quick story here, Bill, as we go to break. Eric Holder yesterday was at the National Press Club for a luncheon because he's on his way out of the office, and someone asked him to compare his basketball game to President Obama's. And Eric Holder says, I'm from New York City, the home of basketball players like Nate Archibald, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and many more. The president is from Hawaii. And then he just left it at that.
Oh, he didn't say Chicago.
He didn't have to say anything else. He just said Hawaii.
Yeah.
Chicago's got some decent ball players.
This
Hawaii
is the Bill Press.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, we come to work. That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself blood pressure or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor's allowing this to happen and what they're doing to and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
11.4 million people re-enrolling or enrolling in Obamacare, if you please. Nobody's talking about it anymore because it is working. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Great to see you today. And it is my first day back in the big chair. The voice not 100% back, so I appreciate your tolerance and patience and long suffering with this voice, such as it is. Every day gets a little better.
You're sounding a lot better.
We hope.
You're sounding a lot better.
It's too bad. Just call and tell me to shut up, and I'll go home and go back to bed. Great to see you this Wednesday, February 18, from the Bill Press Show's studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., coming out to you on your local progressive talk radio station. Hello there in Radioland. And, of course, you can watch us on TV, on DirecTV, Free Speech TV, the satellite dish, and on our worldwide video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We want to hear from you as to what you think about all the issues of the day. We'll give you our opinion. You'll hear from our guests. And then you get to sound off as well at 866. Let's try that again. 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number. You can also send us your comments so you don't have to use your voice on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. With that, here in full voice, Peter Ogburn.
Hello, Bill.
Yes. Just get ready to...
I'm here.
Get ready to jump in at any time.
Standing by.
Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Hello. Alicia Cruz there on the phones, ready to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Balding behind the camera, so we look so good on the camera. Good to have all of you with us this morning. And boy, I'm telling you, it was tough yesterday, but somehow we got through that horrible snow day that totally shut down
treacherous
the city of Washington, D.C. The museums, even the Smithsonian museums, which never closed yesterday. The entire federal government, everything. You know, the National Gallery of Art, right? The Washington Monument. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
5 inches of snow.
It was crazy.
And by the time, first of all, it was no longer snowing when we came in early to get the show ready yesterday. By the time the show was over, the streets were all clear. It was
still a little mess. I'm not one of these people. I think that there's a good reason to shut D.C. down sometimes because we're a different kind of city than, Boston or New York, right? Because we have so many people who have to drive to get into this particular area, right? So I'm not one of these people that think that we're total wusses. However, yesterday there was no reason to shut everything down. There was no reason to shut everything down at all. If you could have stayed home, it wasn't a bad idea to stay home until the streets got cleared. But
you know what? 2-hour delay.
2-hour delay, I could have dealt with a 2-hour delay.
Yeah. Otherwise, it was just crazy. Meanwhile, up in Boston, okay?
We got 5 inches yesterday?
Yeah, 7.5. How do you deal with 7.5 feet of snow? One of the real problems they've got is with their transportation system. They say it could be a month before they can get everything rolling again.
Jeez.
And part of the problem is that, like here, metro lines are exposed, some of them, when they get out of the tunnels, right? Particularly outside the city. Same thing in Boston. But they're more ground level, like Amtrak trains, right? The T. And there's 7 feet of snow on top of the tracks.
Holy crap.
What do? The governor points out yesterday, you let prisoners out of prison to shovel snow.
The Department of Corrections has mobilized dozens of laborers to dig out T-tracks along the Red Line.
Yes.
In 130 communities.
130, they've got, people, prisoners out. I bet they were happy to get out and shovel snow. You know what I mean?
We got some good news. We got some bad news.
Yeah, right. Good news is you're getting out.
You're getting out.
And getting a little exercise. The bad news is you're shoveling snow, dude.
We talked about this yesterday. I love that mayor. This
is the governor.
Is that the governor? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do too. The mayor's done an incredible job.
Marty Walsh?
Marty Walsh, yeah. This is the governor, Charlie Baker.
Charlie.
So they're jumping. It reminds me that the man who'll never return.
That's right.
Right, yeah.
Charlie.
Some of these guys might hop on the T and never come back.
If you had a better voice, I know you'd sing it for us. But.
I would indeed. We're going to start out top of the hour here talking about the Dreamers and the impact of that judge's decision in Texas yesterday. We'll also talk cybersecurity a little bit later in the hour. Sabrina Siddiqui joins us in the next hour as a friend of Bill. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Mars One is a group that we've talked about before here on the show, Bill. They plan on sending humans on a one-way trip to Mars. They announced that they have found their final 100 candidates. Get this.
Oh, really?
Get this.
Yeah.
200,000 applicants applied to go on a one-way trip to Mars.
Never coming back.
Never coming back. 200,000 people wanted to go. They've whittled it down to 100. They're going to eventually get it down to 24. That's going to make up 6 crews of 4, which they say that Mars One hopes to launch to Mars every 2 years, starting in 2024. The goal is to start a colony there.
Are you still in the running, Bill?
I mean, I'm waiting for Mars round. Exactly. Mars round trip.
Yeah, going to wait for that one. We go to England, where a teacher says she wanted to have a name that was very difficult to pronounce. So she has legally changed her name.
Can you pronounce it?
I'll tell you how it's spelled.
Okay.
This is her entire name. ABCDEFGHIJKLMNOPQRSTUVWXYZ. That is her name. The alphabet.
Is that in 3 names?
It's in 4 names, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes. First name, 2 middle names, and then UVWXYZ is her last name. I guess that is a pretty hard name to pronounce.
Mm-hmm.
And the Smartest Teachers Award goes to...
Yeah.
I
mean...
Yeah. You know what? Just call her idiot.
Exactly. That's the nickname. And congratulations to Miss P. Miss P is the best in show at the Westminster Dog Kennel Club. Miss P is a beagle, beating out 2,700 competitors. Again, to win best in show. 4 years old, 15 inches high. Only the second beagle to ever take best in show. By the way, Miss P beat out Matisse, a Portuguese water dog that's a cousin of Sonny, President Obama's dog.
Yeah. If I'm at the White House today, if I see Sonny, I'll just have to give Sonny a big hug.
Console.
Must be tough for the family. Yeah. But that's a pretty beagle. I mean, it's a, you don't think of I don't think of a beagle as a show dog. I think of a beagle as a little backyard hunting dog, right? But
yeah. Pretty dog.
I grew up in Delaware. So.
Congratulations, Miss P.
Indeed. Yes, the battle over immigration continues. Can you believe it? It continues on at least two fronts. Here, Republicans in the House in Washington, D.C., continue to do everything they can to undo President Obama's executive action of a couple of years ago. And yesterday, a judge in Florida agreed with attorney generals from 26 different, judge in Texas agreed with attorney generals from 26 different states that the president's immigration order was having financial impact on their states. On this issue, more than anybody else, we trust and turn to the Dream Action Coalition. Cesar Vargas has been here with us in studio before. Co-director of the Dream Action Coalition joins us on our news line this morning. Hello, Cesar. How are you?
Hey, Bill. Good morning. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, no. Good to have you back, man. So, first of all, before we get into the Republican, silly politics they're playing, or even this judge's order, can you remind people, what did the president do and what didn't he do?
So, essentially, he exercised discretion that 11 American presidents have taken since Dwight Eisenhower, including Republicans and Democrat presidents, to pretty much just say, well, we have limited resources. We cannot deport 11 million undocumented immigrants, which many of them are families, and we're going to focus on resources on the most dangerous, on the people who pose threat to national security, and we're going to allow those like parents, like students who already have families here, and be able to stay here and obtain some type of status, and work authorization where they can pay taxes. That's something that presidents have done throughout history, and that is exactly what he did, something that was backed up by legal precedent, by Supreme Court rulings, and the constitutional authority. So I think it was something very, it wasn't unprecedented of what he did, but apparently Republicans think he pretty much is becoming King Obama, which, we heard that rhetoric again.
Right. So first of all, this would apply, his executive order would apply to young people who were brought here by their parents years ago, correct?
Yeah, so in 2012, he took action to protect dreamers, the young people who came here to the U.S. as young, and I was able to qualify for that. I came here to the U.S. When I was 5 years old, and I was able to obtain that protection. I was able to graduate college and law school. What he did is extend that program to those who to the parents of U.S. citizens or LPR, legal permanent residents, and he extended to others dreamers who pretty much couldn't make it because there was a cut-off age. So this time he expanded to other groups on that.
How many people are we talking about, Cesar? How many young people?
So in November 20 announcement, the president would have provided protection to over 5 million people.
Wow.
These are families who have parents of U.S. citizens and veteran families. So, many of them, when people say, I'm DACA, these are American families, people who have U.S. citizen children, spouses who are American, veterans who have family members who are undocumented. So these are American families like anyone else.
Right. And today is the day that applications were going to be the beginning of accepting applications for this program, correct?
Yeah, it was going to be the first part of a two-part program launch. This actually today was, for example, in 2012, the cutoff age was those who came here when they were before 16 and under 31. I was able to qualify because I was under 30, but my sister was not able to qualify because she was already 33, 32 at that time, and so my sister couldn't qualify. So with this announcement. And the application process today, my sister was ready to apply. She was ready to get her paperwork ready to go back to school, ready to start really making a life for herself. But unfortunately, I had to tell her yesterday she had to hold off, at least temporarily, because of this delay.
And, I saw on the news last night a story after story after story of young people who had, again, the dreamers, that's what we're called, right? Their dream was they were filling out their paperwork. Many of them had been accepted in this school or that school. I mean, they had to get the official work done, and now everything is on hold. So what impact does this have this judge's ruling have? How soon is this going to be decided? Do you think it'll go all the way to the Supreme Court, or how do we, get out of this mess?
Yeah, it was definitely no surprise of the judge's decision. We already knew that the plaintiffs with this Republican states actually went for him.
Yeah.
They actually try to go for the most Republican, most conservative judge that they found, and they did find it. So
Right.
for us, it wasn't a surprise. What hopefully we hope to, we always expected the merits of the case to go to the Court of Appeals and the actual Supreme Court, and this is what Attorney General Eric Holder actually indicated. It's like one district judge was not going to actually, be the actual decisive factor. So we hope to lift the injunction at least by in a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks, by the Court of Appeals in the Fifth Circuit, and eventually it's going to make its way to the court. But most important was lifting the injunction to ensure that all these people, all the students, are able to apply and able to, make a life and pay taxes like anyone else.
And meanwhile, as I hear in Washington, D.C., John Boehner and the House of Representatives refuse still to fund the Department of Homeland Security unless the president is going to rescind the Dreamers Act.
Yeah, and,
I mean, what do you guys? Do you have any conversations with any of these Republicans in the House? I mean, don't they see that this is, first of all, hurting a lot of real people and not helping the Republican Party?
We definitely have conversations with Republicans, even a lot of Republicans who are in key swing districts, like Congressman Corbello, who just recently won, very close in Florida, in Miami, Florida, with a large Latino electorate, and independent. So it's not just Latino voters. These are actual Latino, Asian, independent electorate who are saying, don't shut the government down. And there's Republicans who really are not happy. They want to be able to just pass a clean DHS bill and just debate immigration reform. And we are seeing Senator Mark Kirk in Illinois. We're seeing even Ron Johnson in Wisconsin. We're saying, Republicans, we need to do our stuff and actually pass. We'll debate immigration reform, but we need to pass it. So there's definitely a sentiment that the infighting between Republicans of those sides who are saying, let's just get our job done, let's pass and fund the government, and then we can have a debate. And then there's the Republicans who really just want to do a kamikaze pretty much government type of governing and shut down everything. So there's definitely the debate there.
Well, the fight goes on, and Cesar, I'm reminded of my days working with the farm workers in California. Si se puede, huh?
We definitely are, and that's something we're definitely not going to stop because it's about our family.
All right, great. Cesar, thanks so much for all your good work, and thanks for our time this morning. And we'll get over this bump in the road, the Bill Press Show, Wednesday, February 18.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all of the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
How about it? 27 minutes after the hour. In the next half hour, Dustin Volz will be joining us from the National Journal, covering a whole range of tech issues, including the latest hacking on the part of all these European banks. Millions and millions of dollars stolen, I think up to $1 billion. By the way, Peter, I know you talked about this last week when I was not here, but what about those Democrats going to Philadelphia? Now, you just took your sons to Philadelphia for a weekend a couple of weeks ago.
I love Philadelphia.
I think you tilted the balance.
Yeah. I went as an ambassador for the Bill Press Show.
Right.
And they said, oh, well, clearly we have to make it happen. Philadelphia's a great choice.
First of all,
Peter's presence. You never know.
Know Philadelphia well. Having grown up in northern Delaware, Philadelphia was our big city, right? Where our grandmother took us little kids once a year for Christmas, go to Wanamaker's, see the Christmas decorations, took the train from Wilmington. But also, I taught school there for a couple of years. It's a great city.
Yeah.
And a city that has really come back.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Mel Nutter, great mayor. Michael Nutter, I'm sorry. And I think it's a great choice. And I was there for the Republican convention in 2000. People forget. I did forget. That was George Bush's,
I
right?
absolutely forgot.
And the city worked beautifully for that convention. So it's been proven they know how to do it.
Let's do it.
And I think it's going to be great fun. And I'm going to make sure that the California delegation has an outing to Pat's Cheesesteaks.
King of Steaks.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, got to do it. That's what Philadelphia is all about, right? High tech when we come back.
Is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So,
I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 33 minutes after the hour. It's Wednesday, February 18. Good to see you today. The Bill Press Show brought to you today by the International Association of Machinists, the good men and women of the Machinists Union under President Tom Buffenbarger, sharpening America's edge on the global economy, you bet. You can find out more about their good work by going to their website at goiam.org. Well, the global economy today, that leads us right into the topic of this half hour, the latest on the technology front. Big summit in California with President Obama last week on cybersecurity, and big news over the weekend about the latest hacking attempt, this time on a whole group of banks in Europe which might have resulted in as much as $1 billion in assets stolen from those banks. And plus some new rules released by the FAA on the use of drones by businesses here in the United States. On top of all of that for us, and joining us in studio, Dustin Volz is the staff correspondent for the National Journal covering tech policy. Hey, Dustin, good to see you.
Hey, Bill, thanks for having me on.
Everything good?
Yeah, it's cold.
Yeah, it's cold.
I know it is. Man,
I know we talk about the snow and the
right.
shutdown and all that stuff and how goofy the shutdown was, but man, it's colder than a mother-in-law's love out there. It's awful.
You know, I saw the map last night of wind chill factors. Yeah, it's going to be, and it's getting colder.
And it's not getting better.
No,
it's going to get worse here in
yeah.
D.C.
Right.
Yo, no thanks.
All right. So winter is definitely upon us as well. What was accomplished by, and what was the purpose of this big summit out of Stanford University yesterday on cybersecurity?
What was accomplished? Always a good question to ask. This summit, this day-long summit at Stanford, was really an opportunity for a lot of stakeholders who are concerned about cybersecurity, banks, technology companies, politicians, President Obama, to get together to sort of talk about how important it is and what they want to do going forward. And beyond a lot of long seminars and panel discussions about it, not a lot was accomplished. President Obama did sign an executive order that is pretty technical and pretty narrow. Its purpose is sort of to, really its headline purpose is to convince Congress to get its act together and pass cybersecurity legislation, which he called for in his State of the Union last month, to pass legislation that would give companies more liability to share certain data with one another and the government so they could sort of identify these cyber attacks more quickly and then respond to them. So there was that executive order signing, but still, as we saw over the weekend, cyber hacks continue to happen. They're getting bigger and scarier. This last one affected an unknown number of banks, and maybe as much as $1 billion was pilfered.
Yeah, let's come back to that in just a second. But on the issue of cybersecurity, it also seems there's nowhere they can't go. I mean, the White House has been hacked. The Pentagon's been hacked. Target's been hacked. You know, Macy's has been. I mean, businesses.
Sony, yeah.
Sony,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't. Nobody seems to have built a firewall.
Yeah,
built a firewall yet.
I think the Sony hack really sort of woke people up to the idea that really everyone is totally vulnerable here. And Sony is a technology company. Their hack was not just stealing of information, but destruction of information. They basically held that movie, The Interview, for a ransom. But it's important to remember, too, that most of these hacks really come down to sort of fundamental problems, right? It's something in Washington, people have started using this term digital hygiene, which is a term I hate, but it really gets at the point of it, which is it's up to your own responsibility to make sure you're protected, to make sure you're clean, make sure you don't have simple passwords. So these hacks on Sony, these hacks over the weekend with the banks, they're people opening emails and clicking on links that they shouldn't be opening, so that they shouldn't be clicking on, having their passwords 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, we're still having the same problems. It reminds me of when I was in 5th grade and I would tell my parents, don't do these things on the computer because they didn't know how to use computers. But people are still doing this, and that's important to remember, I think.
I was surprised that President Obama chose the occasion of the summit in California to talk about Edward Snowden and the impact of the release of the documents now, 2-3 years ago, right? President Obama saying how much harm was done.
The Snowden disclosures were really harmful in terms of the trust between the government and many of these companies, in part because it had an impact on their bottom line.
So we're not. So Edward Snowden is now a criminal because he hurt the bottom line, allegedly, of some of these big high-tech companies. Well, it seemed to me a strange tack for the president. First of all, we've talked about this before, I believe, but I think Edward Snowden is an American hero. I mean, I think he did the right thing in letting us know what our government is up to, the massive collection of all this information. But whether you agree or disagree with that, the fact that he might have upset the relationship between the government and these high-tech companies?
Well, and that certainly was on display when Obama went out to Stanford. Only one high-profile tech CEO went to the summit. That was Tim Cook at Apple. Google, Facebook, Microsoft, their CEOs did not attend, even though they were invited.
What's their beef?
Well, I wrote a story, and a lot of others did too, saying that this is sort of an indication that there is still a lot of strained relations post-Snowden, that these revelations have still really affected their relationship with Obama. And a lot of these people were campaigners for him, but it's not the same relationship that they've had, in part because their bottom line's been affected.
Their companies were cooperating with the government before Snowden released this information, right?
To some extent, but the Snowden revelations also revealed information that at least the companies say they were unaware of, that the NSA was tapping into their directly into their firmware and scooping up information that they weren't even knowing about. And so I think that was one of the disclosures that really upset a lot of them.
Well, isn't this a case then, a classic case for President Obama of blaming the messenger?
Those are your words.
No, but I mean, okay, now we know. Now everybody knows what was going on. I think we're better. Maybe they're a little pissed off because now they know what was going on and they didn't know it ahead of time.
Right.
They should have known ahead of time. We should have known ahead of time.
And certainly Obama is still facing the fallout from this. The shadow of Snowden sort of loomed over this entire summit in a way because Obama wants to push this information sharing legislation through Congress. This will help deal with cyber security, according to him and his officials. But a lot of people, privacy advocates, civil liberties advocates, some people in Congress are really hesitant to do anything that would give the government more information because this is information that could turn around and be handed to the NSA, be handed to the CIA, and then sort of maybe present more problems of surveillance. And so almost 2 years later, he's still having to come to terms with those revelations.
I don't know. If he asked my advice would be deal with the problem and get off of Snowden's back. We as an American people, I believe, are a lot better off thanks to Edward Snowden. At least we know what the government was up to. Unfortunately, they're still up to it. So talk about this banking thing. $1 billion? How did they do it? And what banks? Do we know? And any American banks?
Part of the problem is that we don't really know what banks. We do know that, according to the analysis done by this Russian security firm, Kaspersky Lab, most of the attacks were done in Russia. Some were done in Ukraine. Some were done in the United Kingdom and apparently the United States as well. We don't know the banks. The banks aren't coming forward. Part of the problem here is that they're not really forced to come forward and identify themselves. But at least $300 million, maybe as much to $1 billion was stolen. The good news is, I feel like I have to say this, it's not money taken from customers. It was money where they would sort of inflate the account of a customer and then take the inflated amount away. So the banks were really the ones losing the money here. Customers do not seem to be affected, so that's good.
Oh, good. Just the banks. We just stole from the banks.
Big deal.
I mean, yeah.
and it's really kind of out of a movie the way they would do this. They would sort of route information electronically and reroute to fraudulent banking accounts, a lot of money, millions of dollars. But they also at times would have ATMs sort of just explode with money, and then have one of their accomplices would be there and just be like, oh, a lucky random person picked up a bunch of money and ran with it. But in fact, that person was
like
in
Vegas.
on it.
Like Vegas when you hit the jackpot.
Right.
Wow.
And the money just flows out.
Yeah.
So they would wire this ATM, for this particular transaction, and the guy would go it would just spit money out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's really remarkable that this also lasted over the course of a couple of years. Apparently, this wasn't something that has been going on for a week or a month. This was a very sophisticated, very covert thing. They replicated the behavior of the bank so they were undetected, and only after a couple of years did they finally figure out something.
So they would take, let's say, your account, Peter, okay? And they would get your account and get into it, and then they would put in $10,000 in your account, right? And then they would take that $10,000 in a later transaction. They would take that 10 grand out of your account. So you still have the same amount of money you had in your account, but they're walking away with $10,000 that you never had, and the bank has to pay.
Right.
It's crazy.
And the banks didn't know either. Part of the problem was banks would only check, once every day on these accounts, and during that 12-hour interval, the money would be gone.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, Jesse James, eat your heart out.
Yeah, right?
Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
Small time cash, petty cash he was going for, right? Yeah, you could sit home and do this from your basement.
That's what they did. Yeah, absolutely. I guarantee you a lot of these people didn't leave their basement for months at a time, making so much money.
Okay, when I was in California last week, I had my first experience up close with a drone, and there are now new rules governing the use of these drones. Dustin Volz is here from the National Journal. We'll talk about that when we come back. Join the conversation at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found on the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer. Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Okay, 11 minutes before the top of the hour. Sabrina Siddiqui joins us in the next hour as a friend of Bill. Here talking tech issues, Dustin Volz with the National Journal at nationaljournal.com, of course. So the FAA came out with new rules for the use of drones here. These are just draft rules, correct?
Yeah, proposals.
Proposals for the use of drones here in the United States. Again, I showed Peter a picture of the one that a friend of mine had in California. Phenomenal video that this thing took, and this was a really sophisticated, like in the $3,500 level drone.
Mhm.
This is not like one of those little,
not a quadcopter.
Quadcopter, right? That crashed over the White House fence.
Yeah,
but it's awesome. The control you've got over it, the range that it has, the video that you get from it. I mean, it's incredible. So what commercial uses do these have?
There are, a lot of potential commercial uses. One of the important things to note is that these are proposed rules that it's still not going to happen for another couple of years, and the FAA is notorious for sort of missing its deadlines, especially on drones. So don't get too excited. But these restrictions, they're gonna. You can fly these drones below 500 feet. You have to do it within the line of vision of the pilot. You have to do it during daylight hours only. So there are a lot of restrictions currently on the use of it. And one of the restrictions also is sort of carrying packages. So Amazon was very excited to sort of, deliver your books by drone or deliver your pizza by drone, deliver your beer by drone. I was really excited for that. And so these current proposals are not
don't allow that.
Do not appear to allow that. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to change and broaden in the months ahead in a way that would potentially allow.
Why only during daylight?
I think part of that is just, when things are flying around at night, they're more likely to crash into things.
Or wander over the fence of the White House.
Or wander over the fence of the White House. Or one of the big concerns with drones, again, going back to privacy issues, right? Senator Dianne Feinstein told a story a year ago about how she woke up and there was a drone flying outside her bedroom window. And her and some other lawmakers have been very concerned about privacy. And I think restricting it to not allow drones to fly at the nighttime is sort of, it's a little less creepy that way. If you see a drone flying outside your bedroom at night.
500 feet. What are you doing like in New York? I mean, even here, there are some buildings you wouldn't be able to fly over or around or whatever.
And also you have to keep it within your line of sight. So I think flying drones in New York would be pretty problematic unless you just went, down Broadway or something.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, these are it's still a very new technology.
And keeping it within your line of sight is so. I mean, a guy who's using this to keep track of his cattle on his ranch, right?
Yeah. That would be, I mean, I think agriculture is one area
But I'm saying there's too much territory or maybe he's got forest land, right? This is a company, they've got these massive forests on the West Coast. They want to track whatever, right? People intruding in that or the growth of their forest or forest fires. They're not always going to have it in the line of sight.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly going to... This is sort of like a roadmap for where they want to go with drone integration. And these rules are really about safety, and they're going to get into some of the other issues down the road, but this is sort of just like the starting point for a lot of these, because currently commercial drone use has been completely banned, except for a few exemptions recently one was given to CNN for journalism. There have been a couple others given to Hollywood. This is going to open it up for a lot more hobbyists to participate, but it's still very, very much in the starting stage. And I think the idea is to see how this goes with integration, and assuming there aren't any catastrophic crashes with planes or something, that they can open the door a little more in the years ahead. But certainly these are limitations. It is worth mentioning the FAA is probably not very active in policing these things. So if you fly your drone up to 550 feet, I don't think you're going to necessarily get arrested right away.
Oh, that's a consolation. Thank you for that.
I'm not condoning that, but should be mentioned.
Are you going to? So are we going to come to the day when you need a license to fly a drone?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly a lot of the drone use, especially for the commercial, these companies like Amazon that want to get on board, they're going to have to go through these loopholes or these hurdles to get approval. But I think it is only a matter of time before they do become much more commonplace.
I got to tell you, when Bezos first said about delivering packages by drones, I said, he's crazy. I don't think he's so crazy anymore
Maybe
now that
not.
I've seen a drone.
Yeah.
And played with one.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Dustin, great to see you. Lots to talk about.
Great
Good
to
stuff.
see you.
Thanks
you.
for coming in. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
Would you like it back?
what do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat the threat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like it back?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
Sabrina Siddiqui here from Huffington Post. As a friend of Bill for the next hour, we'll be joined by Steve Clemens from The Atlantic. President Obama today gets a daily briefing. This afternoon, he meets with Senate Leader Harry Reid, Democratic Leader Harry Reid. Later, he'll be meeting with the Secretary of the Treasury. And then he goes off to deliver remarks at the big summit we talked about a little earlier in the show, the White House Summit on countering violent extremism. The president's remarks there at 4:15 p.m. We have our briefing today at 12:30. Right back with Sabrina Siddiqui.
This is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this aeroplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight, it's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me? Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
11.4 million people sign up for Obamacare. No wonder Republicans don't talk about it anymore. It's so successful. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Great to see you today on a Wednesday. February 18, yes, they finally let me back in the big chair today, even though the voice is not 100%. You're going to have to put up with whatever it is, and I appreciate your tolerance and your patience.
You sound great. You sound great.
No, I don't, but...
You sound good. Or you sound But we're happy to have you.
With that vote of confidence, we continue here. On a Wednesday, February 18, the Bill Press Show, live from Washington, D.C., and our studio right here on Capitol Hill, with all the news of the day, and we bring it to you, and then you tell us what you think about it all. That's our conversation every morning. We don't forget the way to get in, of course, is by phone at 866-55-PRESS, or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, or simply on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Here with you on your local progressive talk radio station. Here with you on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. And it's such a busy day. I mean, we have a cyber security summit last weekend. Today we have a countering violent extremism summit in Washington. How do you keep up with all the news of the day? You bring in the best, as a friend of Bill, Sabrina Siddiqui, still with Huffington Post, but not for much longer.
Not for much longer, for about a little less than a week.
Is that right? Oh, wow.
I think. Or a little more than a week. Sorry. I'm not sure what day it is. I actually feel bad. I gave everyone a heart attack and rolled in right.
You're here.
You're
here.
You know, you're impeccable with your timing, Sabrina.
I can tell you're right on time.
Right on
You walked
time.
in the door the second Bill cracked.
I did. This is the benefit of guest hosting. You know exactly when.
Well, it's actually maybe the detriment.
The detriment. It's actually the detriment. Today was a day where there were no Ubers or cabs available at all because it's cold.
Well, but nobody in Bill Press land out there, right? Nobody listening, nobody watching realized that you gave us a heart attack and
That's
you showed up with
That's right. Nobody did.
15 seconds
We were
to
going to
spare.
cover for you, but you gave yourself up.
Right.
I gave away the story.
The team here was all waiting for you, Peter Ogburn and Alicia Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Hey.
And I'm still mixed up. Alicia Cruz is going to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding keeping us looking good on the video stream.
Hi. See?
They got a
His
thing going
customary
here.
hello, yes.
Got it. All right.
He wasn't there last time I guest hosted.
I know.
Oh, no, that's right. So the big news, among all the big news of the day, the Westminster Dog Show. Yes, finished up yesterday with a surprise winner. Everybody thought that it was going to be the Shih Tzu or the
Portuguese
water dog.
Water dog, yeah.
There's one other.
Cousin of Sonny Obama.
That's right.
Yeah, cousin of Sonny.
Obama.
Yeah, poor Sonny. But it turned out to be.
For the best in show is the Beagle.
Beagle. Yeah, how about
Miss P.
Miss P. Shout out to Miss P.
Wasn't Snoopy a beagle? Isn't Snoopy a beagle?
What is Snoopy?
Sam Stein's dog is a beagle.
I don't. Maybe Snoopy is a beagle.
Snoopy.
I think of-
Is Snoopy a beagle?
I thought so. I mean, I seem to remember.
I could see
Google
that.
it, yeah. But anyhow, Miss P is the new winner. And as we pointed out, Miss P beat out some stiff competition.
Miss P, the 15-inch Beagle, taking away Best in Show at Westminster this year. She upset the Portuguese water dog, the #1 dog in the country named Matisse, and a cousin of Sonny Obama. Miss B also beat out the standard poodle named Flame, a Shih Tzu, was owned by Patty Hearst Shaw. Yes, Patty Hearst.
Patty Hearst. Whoa, how about that?
Yeah.
By the way,
she's come a long
Obama
way.
can't even get this much done.
Confirmed, by the way, Snoopy is a beagle.
All right.
It's a strange-looking beagle.
Right?
I didn't know they're white and black.
White and black beagle. Hey, look, what? He's Snoopy. That's what he is.
And he's best in show.
Yeah, that's right.
Sabrina with us for the entire hour as a friend of Bill. Steve Clemens from The Atlantic will be joining us a little bit, and we'll jump into the news of the day. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Krispy Kreme had a bit of a mishap in the United Kingdom when they put together a promotion on Wednesdays called the Krispy Kreme Club. Krispy Kreme, of course, is spelled with 2 Ks, so why not just make that club in the Krispy Kreme Club a K?
I've got a good reason.
Krispy Kreme Club. So when they put up the flyers advertising all of their daily specials, on Wednesday, it's KKK Wednesday.
Oh, no.
Krispy Kreme. I will tweet out a link so that you can see the actual flyer that they sent out. But
this was in the UK.
This is in the UK.
Maybe
the UKKK.
Doesn't have the same significance, but still.
But still,
Yeah,
I think you
right.
gotta know. Yeah, you're right.
More
headache.
American company, isn't it?
Yeah. More headache for the New England Patriots as ESPN reports that a locker room attendant for the Patriots tried to introduce an unapproved special teams football into the AFC Championship game. You will be shocked, I tell you, shocked to hear that they tried to put in a deflated football for kicking purposes because apparently you can kick farther with a ball that's a little bit less deflated. Now, this was noticed by an official because every time you get a ball, they put a special stamp on it, and that's one that's okay to be used in the game. So one of the Patriots coaches, a man by the name of Jim McNally, handed a referee a football that was not approved, and he noticed.
Oh.
So there have been 4 people who have confirmed this to ESPN, and so we'll see it. But this investigation over Deflategate is still
Is that
going
what you're
on.
calling it?
We stole that from Cindy Boren from the Post, Deflategate.
Right.
Because the whole Deflategate thing is
And I've mentioned our family, my nephew Will Hossie and his family who are here from Boston.
Yeah.
Enjoying the sights of Washington, trying to get out of the snow, and then look what happened. But at any rate, we asked them, so who was responsible for the deflated footballs? They say, good Patriot fans, the Colts were.
Oh.
That a guy from the Colts who intercepted, and the ball was in their hands for a few minutes, and they deflated the ball.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
That's a
9 out of
stretch.
the 10 footballs were deflated. I'm not sure that the Colts could get their hands on all of them.
All right.
And in 2014, Benihana had a special competition for its fans, the restaurant. It's called the 2014 Passport Challenge to see who could eat at the most Benihanas in 1 year. A man by the name of Jack King, based in Salt Lake City, he's an electrical salesman, took this challenge very, very seriously. he ate at Benihana 579 times.
Oh my gosh.
In 2014.
Oh my God.
579 times. That is an average of 1.58 times a day.
That's a couple times a day.
Yeah.
Do they serve breakfast?
They don't serve breakfast, so he would eat lunch and dinner there on Sundays. And then when he would travel, he said even if there's like a time change, he would go and eat like another lunch. The only person that came anywhere close got 300 visits, so he almost doubled the second place. You know what he wins, by the way, for this? You know what the big prize
Lifetime of Benihana's?
No. You know what he gets? $1,000 gift card.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh, no.
Wait, he spent
That's it.
extraordinary...
He spent $6,000 eating at Benihana, and he gets $1,000 gift
Did
card
he know
back.
this going in?
Yes!
What?
This person is a maniac. This person is a maniac.
But he's really good at catching shrimp in his mouth.
He's really mastered the shrimp catch.
If it becomes an Olympic sport.
He's out 5 grr.
Oh my
But
God.
only so he can be named the winner
So
of the
that
Passport Cup.
I was going to say, who's keeping Benihana in business? It's
This
that guy. Yeah.
This guy.
Right. My suspicion of him is that, like Scott Walker, he never went to college.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. 11.4 million people signing up for Obamacare. Sabrina, it sort of disappeared as an issue, or has it, politically?
Well, I think the Supreme Court case, it hasn't quite disappeared as an issue, but one of the things that will continue to happen is as more and more people sign up for health insurance through the exchanges, especially the federal exchanges, which are at the heart of this new case. It's going to be even harder for the court to take that healthcare, that coverage away from those people.
And harder and harder, isn't it, for Republicans to campaign on the promise that we're going to repeal Obamacare, no matter how many times they vote to do so?
I think that because they've sort of gotten this new, I don't even know what you want to call it. I don't even want to say that, they have a new life raft or anything in the form of this Supreme Court case, because that might be overstating it. But, this is kind of grasping at straws, and this is that last straw. And Republicans are now scrambling on Capitol Hill to come up with a supposed replacement plan that they haven't put forward all these years, because they do know they can't just say repeal. They have to say repeal and replace. So they're back to repeal just because they want to.
They started, remember, at repeal and replace. Then they dropped replace, and it was just repeal. And
now we're back to repeal and replace. And it's just, I think a way of convincing the court that if they did take away the insurance, then, hey, we have this plan, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Now, you would think that after all of these years...
Where's the plan?
Well, yes, and you'd think the court would see through that. But we really don't know if they'll buy into this basically a trap that is being laid out by congressional Republicans.
Now, speaking of congressional Republicans on another front, right? John Boehner was on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace, and he was asked, so what is it about the funding of Department of Homeland Security? Who's responsible for the fact that we're now a week from the deadline and there's still no resolution of that? Boehner is pretty clear.
The House has acted. We've done our job. Senate Democrats are the ones putting us in this precarious position. And it's up to Senate Democrats to get their act together.
As we know, the House has acted. It passed a bill which would fund the Department of Homeland Security only on the provision that President Obama's DREAM Act, or the executive order impacting the Dreamers, and then his follow-up last November, that they be rescinded. The Senate has tried to pass that 3 times. The votes are not there. Mitch McConnell says we're not going to shut down the government. Again, Chris Wallace, I just wanted to hear John Boehner. So Chris tries to get some clarification. Now, what about the fact that the Senate hasn't gone along with this? Just a little bit? John Boehner wants nothing to do with any clarification.
What if the Department of Homeland Security funding runs out?
Well, then Senate Democrats should be to blame. Very simple.
And you're prepared to let that happen?
Certainly. The House is active. We've done our job.
So this is Boehner versus McConnell, isn't it?
It is, because Mitch McConnell very much, I think, put the ball back in the House's court recently after the third time when they failed. And I think on some level, of course, McConnell knew the votes wouldn't be there. So it's still tough to say if this is just grandstanding when knowing that they still do have until the 27th. And when you're up on Capitol Hill, I mean, they're on recess, but they come back and they've got that week, a little less than a week, but they've got a few days to sort it out. But the thing is that I just don't envision a scenario, and I'd be shocked if John Boehner doesn't know this, having gone through one shutdown already. But I don't see how they could possibly think that Senate Democrats would shoulder the blame. I think that it would be very obvious that Republicans in the House passed a bill that they knew was a non-starter with the White House and with Democrats. Why would the president undo one of his signature accomplishments? But he sees one of his signature accomplishments.
Well, in fact, John McCain, Mark Kirk from Illinois, Mitch McConnell himself have all said, Bob Corker from Tennessee, have all said that the House approach is the wrong approach.
Even Ted Cruz said it. Even Ted Cruz said that. So they're not blaming Senate Democrats. They're blaming House Republicans. So, I mean, I just can't believe that that Republicans would allow John Boehner to go that far. But at the same time, who's going to stop him, right? Yeah, I don't know.
He could shut down the Department of Homeland Security.
Right, and I mean, I'm interested to see if they do just kick it back to the House and they strip it out last minute, and he's just trying to placate conservatives in his conference and basically taking every last day that he can.
Yeah.
Because if they send it back, then strip it out and send it back, then it could happen pretty quickly. It could happen in a matter of a day or two.
Right.
But I really think that outside of just this one bill, it's almost remarkable the messaging they're sending on immigration, especially as we're getting more into campaign mode in 2016. I mean, this is the message that they're putting out around an issue like immigration, where Mitt Romney lost over 70% of the Latino vote. I mean, and what they're going to do is now shut down potentially the Department of Homeland Security over the actions the president took because the House did not do anything. The Senate did pass an immigration bill, so the House didn't do anything on immigration, and now they're shutting down potentially the DHS over this.
And 5 million people who would have been eligible today to start applying for this new status, young people who were brought here illegally as children, as infants by their parents, 5 million of them who had their heart set on going, to this college or to getting that job or whatever, are suddenly, thrown out the door, basically, by a judge's decision, but also by John Boehner's action in the House. You're right. Wrong message to send, seems to me. Sabrina Siddiqui here from Huffington Post. Still, we'll find out more about that new job before the hour is out. 866-55-PRESS, our toll-free number. Give us a call. Join the conversation.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
27 minutes after the hour, Steve Clemens. What am I saying? Whoa, no.
Not Steve Emerson.
No, never will he darken our shores.
Zone.
Steve Clemens from The Atlantic joining us in the next half hour to talk about the big summit to counter violent extremism at the White House today. Sabrina Siddiqui here is in studio as a friend of Bill. And Sabrina, it looks like Jeb Bush is going to stir things up today, right?
He's taking it seriously. Yeah, he's going to be giving a major foreign policy speech later on today. A lot of this comes from the Washington Post. Ed O'Keefe has the story. One of the big lines that's been taken away from this is, "I am my own man," is what Jeb is going to say today, making reference to the fact that both his brother and his father were presidents of the United States. But there's an interesting piece out of this. He's going to be relying on 21 veteran foreign policy and diplomatic experts. Tell me if these names sound familiar for this guy who calls himself his own man. Tom Ridge, Michael Chertoff, Porter Goss, Michael Hayden, Michael Mukasey, Paul Wolfowitz, John Negroponte, Stephen Hadley. Are you kidding?
Same old gang.
Same old gang.
Yep.
Gang's all here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. Dick Cheney's not on
Dick
the
Cheney's
list.
not on that list. Dick Cheney's definitely not on that list.
His brother's not on the list.
No,
so there's that.
No.
No, but yeah, this is going to be interesting to watch Jeb Bush navigate his own way. And the administration navigating its way dealing with extremism, terrorism. We'll find out from Steve Clemens
This
coming up next.
is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I see dot, I want you to just push the period.
she's going to love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, at 33 minutes after the hour, Wednesday, February 18. Hello, everybody. It is The Bill Press Show. Welcome back. Here in studio with us as a friend of Bill the entire hour, Sabrina Siddiqui from the Huffington Post. Soon to move on to The Guardian, if you please. And Sabrina, on foreign policy issues related to terrorism or not, there are a few people that I respect, but one of them joins us on our newsline right now. He is a good friend of mine, but I still stop every time I see him on television because I know he's talking sense. Steve Clemens is the editor-at-large for The Atlantic. Hello, Steve. Good to have you on the show this morning.
Good morning, Bill. Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
I want to talk to you about this big summit on countering violent extremism here at the White House's State Department these couple of days. But first, Steve, the news to me that ISIS, we've been talking for the last 8 months maybe about ISIS in Syria, in Iraq, and suddenly, to me, it was a new discovery. They've got this base in Libya as well. How many countries are they really involved in terms of, occupying land?
Well, I mean, in occupying land, they're in the nations you outlined, but I think ideologically, they exist in all the countries in the Middle East, North Africa region.
Whoa.
One of the things that we've not been honest about is we've been, I think, continuing to treat ISIS as sort of a, boutique containable problem. And what is happening is ISIS has much more substantial support within many of these Sunni majority and even Sunni minority nations than we're discussing. And the reasons for that support, I think, are problematic, but I think they are the sense that many Sunnis have is that no one is defending their interests, that the situation in the Middle East is changing so dramatically and so quickly, and that you have this, toxic result where ISIS is emerging in places where people have fear that their interests are being undermined, either by the rise of Iran and Shiite interests or by their sense that, countries that used to basically call the shots in the region, like the United States, are weaker and no longer calling those shots. So it's really a function of the times, and it exists within all these countries.
Yeah, and geographically, I mean, if you're talking about Syria and Iraq, I mean, that's sort of like one thing people say, okay, that's over there. If you're talking about Libya, right, you come right across the Mediterranean from Libya. I don't have a map in front of me, but you've got Sicily, and then you've got Italy, and from Italy, you've got all the rest of Europe.
Well, you've got all the rest of Europe. You've got, you don't want to sensationalize this, but ISIS doctrine is scary because they talk about Rome and they talk about where they're going. I don't necessarily think that they've got inroads that are easy in those directions, but they do have inroads south. And what's been more scary, we had the Minister of France, Minister of Defense from France, Minister Le Drian, here recently, and before really a lot of the most recent horrific things had occurred, and was saying that what French intelligence was seeing was much more communication, coordination, and efforts by groups based in Mid and North Africa to coordinate with ISIS. And this includes Boko Haram, but includes many other groups in that region too. And that's very scary because if you got that kind of sophisticated coordination, you had mimicry of what the beheadings in Algeria. And so you are beginning to talk about a geographic region which is very substantial, because what we're seeing with ISIS is an unbelievable ability to synthesize both foreign fighters, different groups, and make a lot out of what many other people can't. It's always shocking when you look at the amount of money we spent on arming and training, the Iraq military, the Afghan military, spending really literally hundreds of billions of dollars, and ISIS has been able on very few resources to put this fighting machine together that operates in 60 different languages. It's incredible.
Given what we see there, and given what happened in Paris, and given what happened in Copenhagen, what is the focus of this summit on countering violent extremism?
Well, I think the focus is to figure out what is. I think it has different parts of the summit. One is, how you make societies more resilient, how you begin dealing with, essentially the more legal and criminal dimensions of, surviving and being resilient against these attacks. I think the more important part of it is, for the first time in a long time, it should have happened a long time ago, is what do you do to turn young people who are easily hijacked by the emotions and current of ISIS? How do you give them other options? How do you give them nonviolent stakeholder options? What we're seeing is this support for ISIS is cooking and baking inside these societies at significant scale enough that we see what's happening. And that scale, we think, you can call some of them crazy, but not all of them. All of them are disaffected, alienated, somehow not connected to their societies, and choosing violence to achieve achieve personal aspirations or because they think it's politically what they want to do. And I think this is a major indictment of many Western European countries, but not only them. We have people like that in the United States, not to the same degree, but they exist in Australia, New Zealand, Canada. And you look at the folks that have been going over to sign up with ISIS and other groups, but ISIS is the well-branded one right now.
Right.
And I think that what we're beginning to look at finally, and we're far too late. I mean, this terrorism summit is absurdly late, and no one's saying that. Why didn't this happen 6 years ago?
Good
Why didn't
point.
it happen before? So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve, Sabrina here. You kind of alluded to this earlier, where you talked about how we haven't exactly been honest about the threat that ISIS poses, and the administration certainly had downplayed for months the extent to which this group's ideology could spread. They've looked at them as containable. Obviously, the president, referred to them kind of as the JV League, and now as their influence spreads to other parts of the world, do you get a sense that the administration is now changing its tone, that they have a plan to kind of come out more forcefully than they have? Because for now, they still seem to be going that same route, where they're trying to quell fears, they're trying to downplay how widespread this group's ideology could really go. But obviously, that's just not. It kind of counters what people are actually seeing at home. And how do they kind of wrestle those two competing messages?
Well, it's really tough. I mean, because the answer in terms of unplugging ISIS is not killing them all. I mean, that's where our discussion and dialogue is that it's a kinetic response. It requires, some dimension of military force and thus this fighting. I can tell you, given what Bill just talked about, the geographic spread, the deep support within these societies for ISIS will be a whack-a-mole and will continue to pop up wherever we're not. And they've demonstrated an ability to take some very, very big punches. So the question is, what do you do? My answer into that is, in part, you have to look at the fact that as we've been raising some things like a potential Iranian deal, you need to calm a lot of the nerves in the Sunni world. We should have begun right at the beginning when ISIS began emerging, and you saw many of the Ba'athist generals that had been part of the Iraqi military sign up and basically create new collusive arrangements with Sunni tribes in northern Iraq. We should have been alerted at that moment, saying, the kind of stuff that John McCain praises David Petraeus for, of working with these Sunni tribe people, was coming undone in front of our eyes, and they were hijackable, buyable, and many of these folks felt that under the Maliki government in Iraq that they just had no room for themselves, no room for their power, no room for their children and their children's futures, and we needed to be on top of that. So the big answer and what you need to do is we need the leadership in these societies, not just the secular side or the government side in these societies, but also reaching into the theological side of these societies, is to come in and really delegitimate ISIS and what it stands for.
What I find?
And they need to create internal, deep social penalties and peer pressure against it, because the money flow, we keep saying the money flow from inside these societies is minor to ISIS because they can shake down communities, sell oil, sell antiquities, but actually it's not. I mean, there is substantial flow of young men, money, and support and essentially protection, within these societies. And you've got to turn that around, because just fighting them, we're fighting the manifestation of the problem, not really solving the problem.
But isn't it sort of almost humbling on our part to realize that with their limited resources, they are better at messaging to a lot of these young people than we are, right? I mean, Jesus, what have we been doing, with all of these skills and resources we have, right? That our way of life appears less attractive to them than this demonic way of life that ISIS proposes.
I think that's right, Bill, and I think that, one of the things when I try to talk about terrorism to people, because, I said, I know it's hard, but put yourself in the shoes of the people that the terrorists are trying to appeal to. And we don't often think that terrorists are trying to appeal to someone, but they are. They're trying to look legitimate in the eyes of a constituency that feels that the grievances about something, whether it's right that they feel those grievances or not, but they are performers, and they're performers on a stage. And we've decided the strategy is to kill the performers, not to steal the audience. And I think stealing the audience is where much more of our resources needs to go and to be designed to do, because they have an endless line of performers that can come up and do this. And unless we offer something more attractive on that stage, we're not going to solve the problem.
Boy, talk about a challenge. Steve Clemens, so good to have you with us this morning, my friend.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you so
Great
much
to
for
talk
your
to both
time.
of you.
All right, great. So, Steve Clemens, theatlantic.com. Check it out. He's a Washington editor-at-large. We'll be back with Sabrina Siddiqui and the rest of you here at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Here we go at 10 minutes now before the top of the hour. Sabrina Siddiqui here as a friend of Bill. Peter, you were giving me that look like...
I just wanted to say, don't forget that you can always check us out on Twitter, at BP Show, at BP Show. We were talking about Jeb Bush and
yes,
and his big speech he has rolling out later today.
What's the word on the Twitters?
Stephanie Palmer weighed in, just wanted to point out, said that, remember when U.S. General called White House and said that George W. Bush was the dumbest SOB in the world?
Mm-hmm.
That was one of Jeb's new hires that said that. She just wanted to remind us that there was this whole issue about George W. Bush and the foreign policy people that he had around him. So
foreign policy people.
Yeah, foreign policy.
We got it.
Air quotes.
Now, there is one thing about Jeb Bush that I do admire. He has a college degree. Scott Walker, as we know, does not. Now, okay, there are a lot of great people out there today and who've accomplished great things who don't have a college degree. So it's not so much the issue. First of all, I would not, I've said this, I want to make it clear. I would not vote for anybody, Republican or Democrat, who doesn't have a college degree. I'm just, call me elitist, I don't care. But the question with Scott Walker, I think, is, and here's what we want you to find out in your new job, Sabrina. Okay. You're moving to The Guardian?
Yes.
When?
March 16th is my start date.
Okay. So you've done a great job at Huffington, a great run at Huffington Post, and now we're going to The Guardian. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We want to find out why Scott Walker quit college. That's the question. Why did he quit, and why hasn't he gone back to get his degree?
You're just being an elitist, Bill.
I know. So he has not answered that question. Last night, he has an opportunity to answer the question again on Fox News with Megyn Kelly. She asks him, listen to this spin.
It's interesting. That's kind of the elitist, government knows best, top-down approach from Washington we've heard from years. And I don't know about you, Megyn, but we've had a Ivy League trained lawyer in the White House for the last 6 years who was pretty good at reading off a teleprompter, but done a pretty lousy job leading this country. I'd rather have a fighter who's actually proven he could take on the big government special interest and win. And I think there's a lot of Americans out there that scratch their head and say, we have people who helped found Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, plenty of other successful businesses and enterprises across this country who did exactly the same sort of thing I did. It was have an opportunity to start a career, an opportunity to start a business, senior year of college, went out and did it.
Yeah, classic. Let's find a way to attack Obama.
Right.
Right. I won't answer the question. I'll attack Obama instead.
And the best part, too, was just, do you remember when the right was just thirsting for Obama's college transcripts? When that was a thing?
Yes.
Release
good
the
point.
transcript.
Right. I forgot about that.
Now it's like, oh, he had this Ivy League education and he was this great student. So funny. But he couldn't lead.
And,
so it's amazing how quickly you
and
you
who
turn.
needs the transcripts because college doesn't count anyhow, right?
Yeah, right.
It's not important.
Right.
Yeah. Is this going to be a problem for Scott Walker?
I think that for now it's still early, and this is the kind of thing that we are all kind of talking about and wondering, how big a problem they'll pose. And of course, when you're standing up there on debate stage, it depends on how much his opponents in a primary try to make an issue of it. I think, and because he has this approach to call it an elitist big government attack. I think knowing the way that the conservative base works, that's actually a good line for him. That's actually a good way for him to do it. I mean, for us, it's funny, the spin and the pointing to Obama and how he's an Ivy League educated individual who could only read off a teleprompter. That we laugh, but during a GOP primary, I bet that would be a big applause line.
During the GOP primary.
During a GOP primary. Now, I don't
right.
think he's going to be the GOP candidate anyway. So I feel like there's still this is all a means to an end, and I don't think the college transcripts will undo his campaign. I think it'll just be that he's not a standout, remarkable candidate.
I want to see him in the general make that argument. I dropped out of college. It's Obama's fault.
Yeah, right. Thanks, Obama.
Yeah, Obama made me do it. All right. You see her still for a couple of weeks at Huffington. Well, we haven't figured that out yet. Maybe a week.
A week and a half.
At Huffington Post. And then on to The Guardian, where she will continue to do great things and continue to be a member of our team.
Yes. Absolutely. You're not getting rid of me.
Absolutely. No. And you're not getting rid of us either. Okay. We'll come back. Say goodbye. We'll be in just a second here on The Bill Press Show.
This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
Hey, that kind of wraps it up for a Wednesday. Again, the big summit on countering violent extremism at the White House. We'll keep on top of that today. And Jeb Bush making a big speech on foreign policy. We'll take a look at that and wrap it all up and talk about it tomorrow Come back and see us tomorrow. We'll be
This
looking for
is
you.
the Bill Press Show.